And then what's quite important is you have traditional music forms. And around the world, we've been a little more subject to, I think, some of the old kind of American folk music or Irish music and things like that. But across Asia, of course, there have been rich traditions of folk and traditional music. And so I want to do this last session basically focused on that, to shine a light on, think about how that's being promoted in the modern world, how a lot of the tools we have with modern media can then be used to promote and support traditional culture. So with that, I want to turn it over to George Hwang, who will be the moderator for the session. George, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Right. What should I be saying? Okay, traditional music and I think we have to also include traditional instruments. And we know songs like Idol by BTS. 10 years ago, I thought BTS was the Bangkok Sky Train. Right. And their influence on new music, you know, modern music, pop music. I think that it's not only in Korea that we find traditional music pop music being influenced by traditional music or instruments. You have it in China. You also have it in Indonesia. I think it's called dangdut. It's been around for 20 years or more. China, I think we call it 中国风, am I right? Korea is still K-pop. I don't think you have a special name for it yet. Do we? No, right? Yeah.
We do have some fusion, but I'll talk about that.
Right. So without much ado, I think let me just introduce those people who have not been introduced before. Or if you feel like it, you can introduce yourself. Sorry, I don't have your CV with me here, so I'll just very briefly, and you can introduce yourself first, please. We have Laina from Indonesia. She teaches at the University of Bandung. By the way, I think Bandung is actually the sort of the Silicon Valley of Indonesia, am I right? She's laughing, that's probably wrong. Okay, and then we have Mr. Sam Nam.
Yes.
Right, and he teaches here, and it's a colleague of Sean. And then we have Suzanna, who is the CEO of Korea.com. Please give yourself a little bit more introduction when you do your 10-minute presentation. Now, shall we start with the Korean, more about the K-pop first? Suzanna?
Shall I start then?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Suzanna Oh, and the O comes from the fact that I married a Korean man, and I took his name. SAMSTOG was my original name, so I usually go by Suzanna Oh, which causes a great deal of joking, because there's of course a famous folk song called Oh Susanna, Don't You Cry For Me, and I think I've heard that about 10,000 times. I came to Korea in 1980 as an American Peace Corps volunteer. That was 43 years ago. My intention was to stay here for 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer. I was working as a health worker in a rural health clinic, treating tuberculosis patients, as well as offering mother-child health, and also treating leprosy patients, because still in the 1980s, leprosy was a very, very serious disease in Korea, as was tuberculosis. And my plan was to stay here for 2 years, and then go back and go to law school. But that never happened. I have lived here continuously since that time. And my reason for staying in Korea was actually traditional music. To give you a little bit of background on what the situation was with traditional music when I came to Korea, just to tell you a little bit about Korean history. Korean history is very, very long. The last two dynasties, the Joseon dynasty was 510 years. The dynasty before that, Goryeo dynasty, was nearly 500 years. And in this period, and of course there was history before that, but in this period of 1,000 years, music played an incredibly important part in the lives of Koreans. You had folk music, you had court music, And you also had music associated with Buddhism and Confucian rituals. And if you were here this morning for Dr. Chung's presentation, he talked about his grandfather, who he described as being very Confucian, and therefore very worried about his son listening to music. Actually, as part of the Confucian tradition, music was extremely important. If you look at Korea's UNESCO designations, and there are over 50 of them, one of the earliest UNESCO inscribed things was a place called the Cheongmyo Royal Shrine. And that was just inscribed because it was a heritage site of outstanding universal value. But at the same time, what made that unusual was that the ritual and music that accompanied the ceremonies performed at Cheongmyo Royal Shrine was also inscribed in UNESCO as an inherent, intangible cultural asset. So Buddhism, Confucianism, folk music, court music, to describe broadly, music played an incredibly important part in the lives, in the spiritual lives of Koreans through the past 2 dynasties. What happened? What was the situation when I got here in 1980? Well, from 1910 until 1945, Korea was occupied by Japan. It was called colonialization, but actually it was a very systematic effort on the part of the Japanese governor general to obliterate Korean culture. So you had a 35-year period where traditional performing arts could actually really not be performed. After Korea was liberated in 1945, very quickly came the Korean War. The country was devastated. It ended up being poverty-stricken. And of course, people did not have the wherewithal, the amount of time in their daily lives to think about traditional music. So by the time I got here in 1980, traditional music was at an incredibly serious crisis point. Musicians did not have the opportunity to perform, and there was no way that they could carry on with their livelihoods. And what that meant in the short term, the places, the factories that made the instruments were also going out of business. When I came here, there was only one place in the entire country where they made the traditional drums. And so, by great good fortune, I happened to see a performance of a percussion group called Samonori, and it's very simple, 4 performers, 2 drums, hourglass drum and a barrel drum, and 2 gongs, a small gong and a large gong. And when I saw this performance, and as a person who had never studied music, I liked music, but I never studied it, I was mesmerized. And for some reason, when I saw that performance, I said, I've got to learn how to do this. So I found out where the musicians had their small studio, and I went there, and then being a very naive 21-year-old at the time, I said to these master musicians, I said, oh, I want to learn how to play your instruments. And they said, no way, we're not interested in teaching you. And the thing that I didn't realize that in Korean tradition, either you were born into a family of traditional musicians or dancers, or else you became what is called in Korean Moon-Ha-sang. And actually that simply means moon means gate, ha means below. So you actually became a lifetime student of this particular teacher. So they were not open to giving lessons to casual amateurs or anything like that. But I persisted, and then I ended up managing the group for about 14 or 15 years. I didn't know anything about managing either, but I learned from my teachers. And we ended up touring the world. In the early 80s, Korea was opening itself up to the world. They were publicizing the country for the 1986 Asian Games. Then they were awarded the 1988 Seoul Olympics. And they needed a compact group that could tour the world. We only had 4 musicians and myself. And we were able to give a 2-hour performance of both seated percussion and dancing with percussion. And so I spent really one of the most marvelous periods of my life accompanying this group as we toured the world. We brought the Olympic plane back for the 1988 Olympics. So wonderful highlight. And what I would like to say here is that in listening to today's discussion, the entire day, is that it almost might seem like the idea of copyright or protecting the ownership of music or dance or instrumental music is a relatively new idea. And actually it's not. In Korean traditional music, when you were learning a dance or a piece of music or vocal music, you were learning what they call in Korean is the ru, which means the type of music that your teacher performed throughout their life. So for example, if you were learning a type of dance, you were learning, if your teacher was named Lee Mei-bang, all right? You were learning his ru, his style, his school of dancing. And anybody involved in traditional music, if you said, oh, I'm studying dance, the first question they would ask you was, who is your teacher? And what school are you learning from? And this was protected in that sense because anyone, only the people that had learned that particular style of dance or vocal music could say that they were what we call in Korean 제자, which actually means disciple. So it indicates an extremely close relationship with your teacher. You're not simply a student, you're an actual disciple of that person. And so in that sense, early on, traditional music was protected by a unique copyright style, in the sense that your teacher, their particular dance or vocal music style was protected because everyone understood that you were learning from this master. And one other point I wanted to make before we finish is that, as I mentioned, Korea has 50 items, 50 objects that are designated by UNESCO that have been inscribed on UNESCO, and there's three categories: World Heritage Sites, Intangible Cultural Assets, and then Memory of the World. And one reason that all of these traditions are protected, and it's not by a formal legal copyright, but once you are inscribed on UNESCO, that inscription process takes 5 or 6 years, and it's very, very difficult criteria. And if, for example, you might be surprised to learn that Ariran has been inscribed as UNESCO Intangible Cultural Asset. Various types of traditional Korean vocal music and dance have also been inscribed. And in doing that, it's very, very clearly laid out what the music is, how it is to be performed, the number of musicians, costumes they wear. It is almost, in effect, a rock-solid copyright to ensure that that tradition is passed on. And later on, if you're interested, I'll talk more about what's happening with traditional music and contemporary music, but I'll stop here.
You want to, okay, right.
Because the Suzanna just talked about Korean traditional music, so I'm going to kind of continue to talk about Korean traditional music and its influence. And I'm an academic, so if you give me time, like I can really talk for like 3-4 hours. So I access a lot of stuff, but I'll try to skim through and then try to finish in 10 minutes. Next slide, please. So my background. I am actually a professor of computer game design. So you might wonder like, oh, this guy teaches like programming and then why he's here, right? So my background, I'm a director of computer game design program at George Mason University, Fairfax. And I'm also co-director of Virginia Sears Game Institute. And my 15 minutes fame, I was 2010 National Teaching Scholar. I was like one of 27 National Teaching Scholar by Carnegie Foundation. And I'm currently like US Army ITES SW2 contract holder. That means I am one of 33 companies to be eligible to work with US Army on that particular grant, like a software developing grant. And then also I'm a Fulbright specialist. I had a project in Africa, so I work with the Tunisian government. And then currently I'm working with US Embassy Abu Dhabi, and then I'm teaching computer game design stuff in Emirate people. But actually this is the neighbor, which is the biggest Korean portal. Somehow I am listed as experimental digital artist in their encyclopedia of art. So there's neighbor 지식백과, which is encyclopedia. If I am listed as a digital artist because like long time ago, probably 12, 13 years ago, I was a finalist of one of these art competition in Korea. So I had a like show in Seoul. And then my background, I do like noise-based art. So I had like exhibitions worldwide, but I don't do that anymore. Anyways, next slide. And yeah, like I am a huge fan of Paul Simon. Not Simon Garfunkel, but Paul Simon. I love his folk music, and then my childhood dream actually was becoming like a performer like Paul Simon. So I was lucky enough to become a professor when I was 25, and my goal was I'll teach you for 10 years. When I get to be 35, I'll try to be a folk singer. But that didn't happen. So I'm here. But time to time, like in a Korean community event, I'm invited to perform with my guitar and sing a song. Anyways, let's talk about traditional music. Okay, next. So I'm going to talk about the music in general. So next slide. So this is 음악. In Korean, 음악. Korea is influenced by China, so we are using Chinese character. So those are 음악 in Chinese character. And then it basically means music. And then if I separate those two letters, there's which is sound, and ak can be music or joy. So whenever, if you study Korean, whenever you hear the word that's about sound. So song. Song means a character, so that's a character of sound, song, or voice. And then 색, 색 means color, so it's like color of sound. Whenever you see ak, it is something about music. Next slide, please. And just keep going. Yeah, so here, I try to kind of point out like those, those music genres. So 국악, the kuk means like a nation or country. So Korean national music is called 국악. 농악, 농 means like farm or farming or agriculture. So instrumental farm music is called 농악. 아악 is court music. By the way, 아악 was the item in Britannica encyclopedia for a long time. So because it starts at AHK. So that was the first entry in Britannica encyclopedia. And 예악 is ceremonial or ritual music. And 정악, classical formal music. 제례악, royal ritual music. And 향악, indigenous, native, or folk music. So basically what I'm trying to say is, in Korean traditional music, we literally have all types of genres. I mean, like if you think about classical music was the music serving like royal people or kind of rich, the high class people. We actually we have 정악, which serves people with like more power. So I wanted to point out that yes, like we're dealing with the music in general. So even when we talk about Korean traditional music, yeah, you can literally think about all the genres of music. And next slide. So how Korean traditional music has formed? There could be some argument over this, but people believe we used to have like 향악, which is indigenous native folk music. So this is from before 618, like 907. So at that time in China, we had like Tang the dynasty. So the Korean music at that time was influenced by the music from Tang dynasty, and then we formed the Korean traditional music. We became with a better structure at that time. Next slide. So here, if you play guitar or any instrument, you might be familiar with Asian pentatonic scale. So pentatonic scale, it only uses 5 notes in 1 octave. Okay? So at that time, like Tang dynasty or the Tangak used 5-note or pentatonic scale, and it influenced Korean traditional music. So next slide. And then we actually developed 12-note scale, but it was based upon that pentatonic scale. So they literally have used this 12-note scale in 1 octave, like with those 5 pentatonic scale as like keys or notes. So they literally created this like 60 scales in Korean traditional music. And people believe that at that time, the reason why we use a 12-note scale is many string instruments in Korea. Like one of the dominant one was 가야금. 가야금 has a 12 string, so probably that's why they developed this 12-note system. Next slide. So I'm going to skip this. And Korean traditional instruments, we usually use 4 categories. So 현명악기, 공명악기, 채명악기, 피명악기. I didn't put the Chinese character, but you now realize, oh, 명악기 actually same thing. So this first letter indicates what types of instrument it is. So 현 means string. And then next 3 letters, 명 is resonate. And 악기 is a basic instrument. So basically this 현명악기 is that musical instrument that uses string to resonate. And 공명악기 is space. 공 means space. So it uses, it's like either wind or brass instrument and to resonate the space. Then 채명악기, 채 is body. It's a percussion that uses its own body to make sound. 피명악기, 피 means skin. So usually stretched letter such as a drum. Okay, so those 4 types of instruments. Next slide. So this is a strings, traditional strings. So I'm not going to go over everything, but traditionally, if you go to any country, you can easily find like those string instruments. They're slightly different, but the idea or concept is the same. Next slide, please. And these are wind. Actually, the last one is a brass, but this is some like woodwind or brass wind.
The round one.
No, this one.
Okay.
This one. Kind of that they use like brass. And then that the round one is actually ceramics. Next slide, please. And 채명악기, they actually like hit the body of the instrument to make the sound. And next. And this is 피명악기 skin or like a drum, because they use like a stretched leather. Okay, next slide. So now I'm going to talk about how like a Korean traditional music has been kind of implemented in modern music. So there has been many attempts to do this. Like 1965, we had this famous composer named Lee Sang-yoon. Actually, he's considered as German composer because after Korean War and then he immigrated in Germany and then he basically worked there. So he's considered as German composer, but he composed this piece, 예악, in 1965. 예악, I mean, like you probably don't remember I talked about it, but I kind of talked about it. That's a Korean ritual music. And actually, 종묘 royal shrine music. That's like what it is. So the Yoon or Lee Sang-yoon, he composed this reak as a modern music piece. So if you actually play this, it's kind of hard to listen to it because it's kind of unmusical. But he actually put the harmony and pitches that used in traditional Korean royal 종묘 shrine music into it. So it's almost like, to me, I kind of like, it reminds me of like Eric Satie. Like, because Eric Satie sometimes uses a piano, but he almost treated piano as a kind of like a percussion. As like he kind of hit the 3 keys to create that sound. And then Lee Sang-yoon, he used that particular traditional like pitch and note into his modern music to come up with sort of like better music that include Korean traditional music. And next slide. And another early attempt, like Suzanna just talked about 사물놀이. 사물놀이 is invented 1978. So this is actually a theatrical version of 농악, which is an instrumental farm music. So at that time, 1978, what happened was the guy named Kim Deok-soo, he really loved this 농악. instrumental farm music. But instrumental farm music usually uses like 30, 40 people. And then their venue is actually outside because this is the music they play for farmers to cheer them up. So he tried to kind of capture the essence and then try to make it as kind of theatrical version so that he can kind of introduce this as kind of new form of music. So on the right, he actually literally converted that old Korean traditional music as sort of like advanced form for performing in the theater. Okay, next. And then there's like Nanta, it's like 1997. It's not technically like a pure musical form, but this guy named like Song Seung-hwan, he came up with this notion. He was influenced by a tube performance by Blue Man Group and Stomp, the performance by Steve McNicholas and Luke Creswell. So he thought of, oh, I want to use this like Korean traditional beat and then like make a performance. So 1997, he used that essence of some sort of Korean traditional beat and create that performance. Okay. And next. And then I want to think about why Korean people wanted to like put this Korean traditional music into modern music and try to export it. Okay? In terms of socio-economic and political background, Korean people love this story of miracle on the Han River. After Korean War, everything's gone, but they worked really, really hard and became this like really kind of they were from like this like kind of people were poverty line, and then we were like underdeveloped country, but now we are like one of like are we one of G7 now? Anyway, so people actually love the idea of this like miracle of Han River. And then so what really happened was, up until that point, people only focused on globalization and westernization. They really didn't care much about like Korean stuff. They try to observe and they try to learn from this like a powerful countries. They try to like, oh, we want to accept this Western culture and then like make it better. But 1987, okay, I'll finish in 3 minutes. 1989, we have like Uruguay round. That was the treaty. Yes, yes. So 1989, they start like there was this Uruguay round. It ended in 1994. It finalized 1994, and then they realized, oh, we just accepted everything from the Western culture and everything, but now actually we might need to protect something within the country. So they stepped back from accepting Western culture as is, and then started focusing on traditional culture and our own Korean culture. And next slide. So 1993, this one was one of the early attempt like that uses Korean traditional tune into like modern music. So the Seo and Boys, they were one of the like most popular pop group in Korea, and Seo was considered as a cultural president in Korea. So he created this song, and then he used it, like this is like hybrid dance music, rap, metal, like combining punk, like the beat sampling, heavy metal, hip hop, and Korean traditional music. So this one was like 1993. And next slide. And this is 2013. So sometimes you can see they try to create like the newer kind of or reinterpret famous Korean traditional folk song using different, more modernized form. So it's 2013. There was this jazz vocalist named Yoon Sun-na. She actually used Arirang, which is one of the most popular folk tune in Korea in jazz version. And then it was pretty, it got pretty good recognition in Europe and other countries. The next slide. And later, there's this like a new form of music. They're sing. There's some like they're cross like drag queen and like cross dressing, and then they came up with completely new types of music by utilizing Korean traditional pansori, which is like a Korean traditional tune, into their music. So they were featured in Tiny Desk concert by NPR, National Public Radio, in 2017. And next slide. And then 2020, there's a Chien-Chih and Ambiguous Dance Company. So they kind of did the same thing, like similar thing to Sing, but they actually added a little more kind of like a dance move that kind of reinterpreted from like Korean traditional dance and music. The next slide. And there's another group like ADG7, like Akdan G7, and then they're also featured in Tiny Desk concert by NPR in 2022. So the whole concept is same. Like they actually try to bring out more Korean traditional influence in their music with the kind of more modernized beat, like hip hop style. And BTS, the Sugar from BTS, and apparently he used the name August D. I have to admit that like I don't know anybody in BTS. I cannot like distinguish them, but he back in 2020, he worked on this piece called Dechita, which is actually Korean like a traditional form of music. And then again, he used this Korean traditional music into modern kind of beat to use that like influence from Korean traditional music. And next slide. And Blackpink, 2020, Pink Venom. And then at the very first scene, Jisoo plays Gayagum, and then it has did that crossover between Korean traditional music and the new like hip hop music. The next slide. So here's the thing. I have like 2 more slides. That's it. And then this is the most Korean thing or culture is the most popular or global thing in culture. So this is like what Korean people like believe. Okay? So they believe like somehow they think so. This is very interesting concept because in a sense they actually use the notion of like cultural imperialism and nationalism. So things to think about, like next slide. So, okay, the most Korean thing or culture is the most popular global thing culture. So in a sense, this is sort of like against cultural pluralism. Okay? Behind this, they have this KP, like Korean pride. Okay? Korea must be #1. Okay? So now we have this Asian game, okay? And people get pissed off if Korean person like doesn't win a gold medal. So sometimes, okay, I totally understand like Olympic or Asian game. Those are kind of, I mean, competition of nationalism. But then again, like Korea sometimes like responded to those notion like really interesting way. So in a sense, they I believe like cultural imperialism and nationalism is kind of somewhat like impacted those things. So Korean people's perspective, we used to receive foreign aids, but now we provide aids to other countries. So we're better than them. From being helped to being the helper. Again, because we're better. And in terms of culture, we used to consume and accept Western culture, but now we export Korean culture products, K-pop and Hallyu, and lead to form new global culture. So I am all for this Korean wave, K-pop, Hallyu, but again, we have to be very careful to like move away from this notion. Okay, next slide. So again, sometimes people use this as a new propaganda, like because again, like they think Korean people should be better, or we are better than other culture. But obviously, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think like that's right, and we should be away from that notion. So, like culture doesn't have to flow from higher to lower ground. However, sometimes the more influential culture is considered as the better or higher culture. So in a sense, I mean, we have to really think about it, and then, yes, we want to spread K-pop, like Hallyu and Korean culture, but again, it's not necessarily we do that because we have better culture. It's more likely we want to contribute to form more welcoming and inclusive culture by doing this. So, yeah, this is my last thing that I'm going to say. I'm a big fan of Bela Bartok, the old composer, and the reason why I like Bela Bartok is he used cultural pluralism in his pieces. Like in his orchestra version, like pieces, he actually studied this local or some cultural folk tune from like small country, and then he put that in his piece. So I think that's like a show how you can show your appreciation for these various and then interesting cultures in the world. So we may want to recognize each one of us as an equal contributor to move humanity forward. And as the person in the kind of like center of K-pop and Hallyu, I believe this is a great thing. Yet, we have to understand we want to spread or share. We want to share this K-pop, Hallyu, Korean culture not because we are better than other people, or not because we have better culture than other country, because we actually want to make this new like a culture by contributing like to this form this new culture by sharing what we have. Okay, thank you.
Before Laina speaks, you want to speak now? Okay. I was thinking have a 5-minute for you go ahead then. After that, then throw it to the floor for 5 minutes and before we go on. More interactive.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank George Mason University Korea and also Professor San O'Connor to having me in this prestigious conference. My name is Laina RAFIANTI. I'm an associate professor from Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, which is located in Bandung, and it is in Java province. This is Bali. And Bali is another island. Okay, as can we see in this map that Indonesia is very huge and it is an archipelagic state, consists of 3,000 ethnic groups, 300 ethnic groups, 718 local languages, and so many tribes. Yeah, so it means if I say Indonesia and local music from Indonesia, which local music? From which tribe? From which province? Because we have 33 provinces in Indonesia. And the current situation is, as Suzanna mentioned, that Korean music, it is more with the rituals or dynasty or something like that. In Indonesia, it is some of them, some of tribe, music is a medium for communication with God. So it is not only for entertainment at first, it is for ritual things, for rites, ceremonies, and it could be for educational things. And after that, it goes to the for entertainment. And slightly different from previous speakers. Here, I'm talking about the traditional cultural expressions, which is in Indonesia, it comes to copyright law. Actually, I would like to share videos, but I'm afraid the time is not enough. So I give to the committee for the link, for the video links, and you can ask the committee for that. The picture on the left is angklung buhun. Angklung is one of bamboo music instruments, come from West Java, from my tribe. The tribe called Sundanese, we usually call Sundanese. And it is usually for daily life, in the farmer life from to seed and until the harvest. And the picture in the right is the modification of angklung. Probably you often heard arumba or music from bamboo. And then the traditional cultural expressions itself is a cross-cutting issues between culture and IP. So we in Indonesia, we have ratified the Convention for Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2017. It said, yes, UNESCO in 2003, and it is ratified by Indonesia in 2007. It is all about the safeguarding the culture. And then, after that, we also have the advancement of culture law. It is, again, in the culture subject matter. And yeah, the objectives are for protection, development, utilization, and building awareness of the culture. And there are 10 cultural advancement objects, and music is part of this. And from the Article 22 of this law, it mentioned that to prevent foreign parties from claiming the intellectual property of the cultural advancement object. So this is the cross-cutting issues with the IP. And it also have the government regulation on these cultural issues concerning the consent. Yeah, and it is already happened in Indonesia before the culture of advancement law and before the recent copyright law in Indonesia. This is the Ilagaligo. Ilagaligo is an oral tradition from Bugis tribe from South Sulawesi. And this is traditionally, what is it? Memory of the word. But then someone from the United States, Robert Wilson, probably you know him, Robert Wilson, collaborate with Indonesian musicians, collaborate in Indonesian artists, and have the performance on it. The performance itself all around the world and go back to Indonesia, to Makassar, the place of Ilagaligo itself, and last time was in Denpasar, Bali in 2019. Some people are afraid that the use of this Ilagaligo manuscript and the music inside this performance will infringe the local culture itself, because it is played by and directed by other person, an Indonesian person. But then the producer of this performer can prove to the public and also to the government of Indonesia that the involvement of Indonesian people, Indonesian musicians, Indonesian dancers are very high in this performance. And kembalinya Ilagaligo is get back Ilagaligo to Indonesia. So the benefit, both from commercial and non-commercial benefit, goes to Indonesia, of course. And then I would like to show you that we have already known right now copyright as a conventional protection. We can say this is an individual IP. And then we have, in Indonesia, we have communal copyright. And it is regulated in Indonesian copyright law. The thing is, for individual copyright, the right is exclusive, but for communal copyright, this is inclusive right. So it is not exclusive to some people, to individual, but it is inclusive to the ethnics, for example, the tribes, the people. And also Indonesia, in the legal view, we have Indonesian copyright law, 2014. Music categorized as traditional cultural expressions. The point is, in the third, the Art 38 on the third, the use of traditional cultural expressions must consider the values that live in the custodian community. So this is not a public domain because it belongs to the community. Yeah, and of course, there are an economic right should be gained by the holder of traditional cultural expressions itself. And also, last year, it was enacted the government regulation number 56, 2022 concerning communal intellectual property. Communal intellectual property consists of genetic resources, traditional GRTK, traditional knowledge, traditional cultural expressions, indication of source, and geographical potential of geographical indications. Yeah, the benefit itself could be monetary or non-monetary benefit. And also music is regulated in the Article 7 about the traditional cultural expressions. Yeah, about Balinese gamelan. George asked me what is the instruments originated from Bali. Yeah, I thought this is gamelan. Yeah, gamelan is not from Bali only, but in several parts of Indonesia, including in my my origin, Sunda, from West Java. A part of Balinese gamelan taken by Sundanese. Yeah, the left one is gamelan from Bali, and the right one is gamelan from Sunda. But it always said that the original thing is Bali. So Bali always put in the name of whatever or whoever the creator of the next derivative works of gamelan of Bali. Jaipong itself is dance originated from Sunda, but the music is very Sundanese. But then for this music, particularly, the use of Balinese gamelan is on it. Okay, I believe there are many things to be discussed, but the point is we Indonesia would like to emphasize that traditional cultural expressions is a part of our cultural diplomacy. And traditional cultural expressions is a cultural identity. the more disseminated, the more famous abroad. I believe this is the last slide. I said that Indonesia is very diverse. Our first president said this, and yes, we are. Unity in diversity. Thanks.
Okay, hello everyone. I think because the time is so limited, so I just use a few minutes to try to raise some issues we just discussed. Yeah, I think in Mandarin music market, there are also some very interesting cases. For example, a singer called Lala Xu Jiayi. She wrote a song called Riding a White Horse. This song became a very popular song in Mandarin music market, especially she won the Golden Melody Award in Taiwan, the most prestigious award in Taiwan. And also she became a successful artist in China. She even went to the very famous TV program, I Am a Singer. So actually in this song, he tried to remix the Taiwanese opera, a very famous song, 薛平贵王宝钏, into his new musical composition. And I think this kind of remix tried to recall some very important and valuable, historical meaning to the new creation. So I think the other example is about Guo Yingnan, because we also discussed some issue about Aboriginal tribe, the music by Aboriginal people. Guo Yingnan is a leader of Taiwanese tribe, yeah, and he wrote a song called Drinking Song. Because in Aboriginal tribe, they have different kind of concepts in terms of copyright. They don't, just the leader has the right and the power to learn this song and perform this song. And when they got the revenue, they need to return all the compensation to the whole tribe. Okay, so it's totally different. The mindset is totally different. So when a very famous professor called Xu Changhui, he's a very famous anthropology professor, he found Guo Yingnan, he entered the tribe, tried to make a lot of recordings, tried to record all his voices. But the problem is, there's a band called Enigma from Germany. The band wrote a song called Return to the Innocence. This song was selected as one of the theme songs of Atlantic Olympics. And when this song played in the TV, Guo Yingnan feels so sad because the band didn't get any kind of license. They just use it. And even at that time, Taiwanese government tried to support Guo Yingnan to file a lawsuit in the US. But it's a very sad story because Guo Yingnan passed away before the result came out. So you can see there are a lot of things about the cultural appropriation, a lot of things about the culture. So sorry, it's a little bit exhausted. That's the panel. And so I think there's a lot of cultural appropriation issues in these kind of cases. But there are also some very positive cases in Taiwan. For example, a very famous producer called Adia. He was the producer of Ame. Ame is the superstar in Mandarin music market. And he tried to remix Lenny Kravitz's song, Are You Going My Way, into a very famous Chinese traditional composition, Yang Ming Chun Xiao. So if we have time, maybe in the near future, you try to search for this song on the YouTube, you can see just Adia have that kind of talent to do that. So I just want to say it's pretty hard to make a balance between the old things and new creation. This is about the freedom. But there are something in here, there are so many cases we need to think about what kind of solution we should have under the copyright system. Okay, the other issue is about the production process.
Because just like I say in this early morning, yeah, music studio is very important, play a very important role in our society now. In Taiwan, I think 20 years ago, Taiwan's market is very strong. Why? Because we learned from the US. You know, a very famous singer called Jeff Zhang Xingzhe. There's a video on YouTube. Yeah. When Zhang Xingzhe tried to produce his album 20 years ago, he brought his whole team to the US, to California, and tried to work some very outstanding session players. Yeah, in the music video in California. And this guitarist is called Michael Thompson. He's some kind of legendary session player in the US. So they learned how to make production, how to do the recordings. So this kind of, you know, experience is very important. And I think at that time, Taiwan tried to build some kind of global engagement, or maybe try to enhance our global supply chain. We want to be some kind of music center in Mandarin music market. And recently, Ame, just like I mentioned, this female singer is very famous in Taiwan, in China also. She invited Martin Friedman to Taiwan to join her concerts. So I just want to say the globalization can be very important for the music production as well. Yeah, and I think the Western influence is very important to Taiwan and also China. And yeah, but I just want to mention there's a very interesting thing between Taiwan and China. Actually, before China opened his market, they tried to earn a lot from Taiwan. So Jiang Jianming is a very famous guitarist in Taiwan. He entered the Chinese market with Chien-Chih, the first male singer entered the Chinese market, like kind of the Ozzy Osbourne or maybe the Rod Stewart in Taiwan. Yeah, and Jiang Jianming tried to teach the Chinese guitarists, the musicians, how to do the recording, how to do the music production. So I think this kind of connection is also very important. So that's why we need to build out some kind of more sufficient international copyright system. Okay, so the last thing I would like to mention is about money, because I think product placement is some kind of very important trend in music industry. For example, I read some article about Kanye West. He always tried to put a lot of brands and trademark into his lyrics because he tried to get more sponsorship. Yeah, this is a very good, you know how to do business. And you can see he even tried to put a Mercedes, Lexus, Gucci, LV product into lyrics. So this kind of brand will sponsor his album. Yeah, I think this is quite smart. But the problem is when you got this kind of funding, you will try to limit your freedom probably. And also you will try to make more maybe garbage because you didn't create something from your heart. Okay. So yeah, and the other case is about Run DMC. They try to mention Adidas maybe more than 20 times in the lyrics. Yeah. And Taiwan, we also have a case about a very famous soda brand. The hip hop band tried to, you know, did a product placement in their songs. So this kind of trend is also very common in China now, because when you watch the Chinese TV program, you can see a lot of product placements. Yeah, and I think China is a very extreme example. Yeah, they really want the money. They try to know how to do the business. But the problem is now, since the government try to figure out, try to draw a line, because he seems, you know, this kind of business model really harm the culture. Yeah, so I think this is a very serious issue for us as well. And you can see there's an article in China. It's about the Chinese government try to restrict the sponsorship, or maybe try to restrict the hip hop TV program in China, because you know China pretty care about the people cannot put any political comments in TV programs. So Yeah, this kind of, so I just want to say in my conclusion, I want to say how to increase our, try to increase the global supply chain and how to make our globalization into a very good direction. This is a very big issue between the Western country and Eastern country. And also how to strike a balance between the traditional music and maybe the modern music is also a very big issue for us. But I think copyright can be a very good system. But also I think because we are in an information society now, so how to disclose the information is also a very important topic. For example, in our session about social media today, we mentioned a lot of things about data. So now how to disclose this kind of sponsorship or product placement, I think there will be a very important issue in the near future. So you might know the most famous guitar production company, Gibson, was bankrupt a few years ago. So he seems the people don't play the instrument anymore. They just use, maybe like DJ, use the computer to create the music. But is it a problem for us? I think it's a problem about, or maybe an issue about humanity. You know, I think AI tried to remind us what is important to the human being. Yeah, because we want to create something more artistic, not just like a robot. Okay, so I think that's it. So that's a sentence I just want to show you. I think Picasso mentioned something very important. Yeah, some kind of transportation we need to focus on when we talk about music. Okay, so that's it. This is my first time in the US. I went to a music program. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
We are running out of time, so 2 questions from the floor. By the way, the Japanese, when they were in Singapore during the Japanese occupation, also had censorship of music. Basically, only the Japanese music can be sung in the schools.
Yeah, in Korea's case, it was not simply censorship, it was an attempt to obliterate Korean culture. It was very systematic. So that's a topic for another conversation.
Yes. Any questions? Not. Nobody have any questions? Then maybe I have one. Do you feel that, well, okay, quick, good. Put your hands up, the next one.
Hello? Okay. So, I'm a music producer and I love Korean traditional music. I love traditional music in general from all cultures. And when I first started producing music in 2019, I actually recorded traditional Korean instruments and I tried to implement it in my music, but incorporating it, I guess, a little bit of modernism, while still keeping traditional elements, because I wanted traditional music to be enjoyed by people also of my generation, than maybe like, oh, I don't want to go to a traditional music concert for 2 hours and listen to this, you know? So I wanted to make it more accessible. So, in your opinion, do you think it's a bad thing for artists and producers of modern day to take traditional music and try to fuse it into modern day music? Or is that like appropriating? Like, I just want to get your opinion, because obviously it's subjective, you know, so.
Shall I answer? Yeah, that you bring up so many interesting points, and it takes me back to when I was first studying Salmonori under Kim Dok-soo. And when I would tell Koreans that I was studying the music, generally what they said to me was, 그런 시끄러운 음악 왜 공부하고 있냐? So they used a very pejorative term. They said something, this is just noise. Why are you interested in studying that? When I heard that from them, I was shocked, because when I saw the music, I was stunned. It was fantastic. It was amazing. And I'm still here 43 years later. involved with the music. And your point about going to listen to a traditional concert, traditional music concert, and many young people thinking, oh, that's boring, terrible. Problem is, in Korean education, children aren't exposed to the music. Now this has become much better in the decades that I've been here, but because of the introduction of Western classical music, which was interpreted as being somehow more refined and more developed, people had a prejudice against traditional music. And as I mentioned before, we came to this kind of crisis point where there were very few performers, there are very few people able to experience the music outside from the traditional music community, that there were very few teachers that were able to teach the music in schools. So one of the projects we did with Samonori was teach the teachers how to teach music. So there's a problem of education, there's a problem of people being to fully appreciate traditional music. What I personally worry about is that if a musician doesn't have a deep grounding in the instrument, the traditional instrument that they might attempt to perform on, you're not going to really get a good mix of music. So it's not something that should be attempted on a very casual basis. You need to work with someone that has a great deal of skill in what they're doing. And the same would be true with the Western instrument. So that would be my caveat if you were going to do that.
Yes,
I think there's an awful lot of potential there.
Yeah, so like collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Samonori has been doing one of the things when we traveled to Europe. This was very interesting. You know, we performed and people wouldn't say, oh, that's traditional music. What they would say is that jazz? You know, that sounds so contemporary. And we'd have musicians come up to us after the concert and say, hey, we want to do a gig with you. And so after we did the first few years of touring in Europe, especially, instead of performing at venues where people are coming to see traditional music, we were performing at jazz festivals in collaboration with other musicians. And we've done that for more than 35 years, yeah. But it was because the musicians were very good that they could do that.
Okay, if I may add, related to the previous session about social media having a big influence. Of course, in the traditional music development, social is also have a big influence. For example, in Indonesia right now is hype a TikTok called Ajojing. Probably you may search on it, Ajojing. It was taken from gamelan music and percussion from Sundanese and taken from the puppet show, a short version of a puppet show. But it is turned into TikTok music, and then yeah, people, as you know, may dance with this song.
So
I think one more. Any other questions?
could I just have a feedback question to that? Just skip that point. So do you think it's a problem that that song is going viral because they're not getting given the recognition and people don't understand where that song actually comes from?
As long as it will be a cultural diplomacy, as I said before, it is a benefit already for the traditional Sundanese music itself. But then our law regulates that if there is a commercialization on it, it will be several steps into regulating.
I want to say, for me, I think the traditional music sometimes recalls some very good memory. Yeah, maybe my childhood with my parents or maybe grandparents. So yeah, for me, I think because in Taiwan we learn from Germany, so we have moral right and economic right system. So I think we can depend on two different kind of system and try to make a balance. But the problem is I know some of my friends, they are film directors, when they try to remix some music into their production, they need to pay a lot of money. So I think that's why MLC or maybe other collecting society are so important to help them try to build more sufficient or more fair compensation system. Yeah, so for me, I don't think, try to use traditional music is bad. But in terms of social justice or maybe transitional justice, I think the Aboriginal music can be a very critical issue. Yeah, because they have a different kind of bias, just like I say. So actually in Taiwan or maybe in Indonesia, we have specific law try to help them and try to help them try to fit in the modern society. So I think this is a very good trend. You know, we try to figure out, but they are very good direction. We try to working on these kind of issues.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. I think we're supposed to be closing now. Okay, thank you. Thank you.